friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are, a little domestic podcast, shall we say, because we've got one of our very own. We got Will Hallowell, who's the senior journalist now with Airside, and just having a little bit of fun with him with the Hallowell name, but he likes to be known as Brunette Spice, not Ginger Spice. So Brunette Spice of the journalism world. Will, lovely to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Great to talk to you again, Chris.
Yeah, and I've got to say, you're one of the smartest men I've seen, and your persistence and consistency at turning up suited and booted is admirable, mate. And long may it last.
Always.
Long may it last. Major Will. Right, Will, you've just returned. You've had you were out in Munich, lovely place, and you were lucky enough with the weather. So I'm sure a few steins went down very nicely. But you were at Inter Airport.
Yes, yeah, it's my first time at Inter Airport Europe. Certainly eye-opening. I mean, I've been to a few events now since I've been working as a journalist in the aviation industry. I have to say it's my favourite so far, I think, in terms of, the kind of different people that were there in comparison to some of the other events. And I mean, people said it was smaller this year than compared to previous years, but I thought it's much bigger than I thought it would be. So, yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It was great.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's good to go with fresh eyes, Will, because, lots of the conferences now, they're getting a bit samey, or they have been. And obviously there was a lot of excitement coming back out of COVID and people were looking for something a little bit different. But now I think they're settling down a little and they're focusing on what really matters, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. But also the location is important and what you do when you've got some spare time there, because that also brings people together. And I'm not referring now to the Steins and the beer houses, but what I'm saying is, people need to get together at these events from all kinds of networking, whether it's to do with business, with orders, with even recruitment. People need to see each other. So, but it's good with fresh eyes. Now, you said it was a lot smaller from what you heard, and I've also had the same feedback. That it was a lot smaller and there wasn't as many halls being used. So it's interesting, but it's always a good conference. So what I just want to ask you now is, what were the big standout items that you felt are worthy of, just having a little chat about them?
Well, I think one of the biggest kind of features, I would say, of this event is the kind of focus on sustainability and more, electric GSE. I mean, all the manufacturers, we had loads of electric tugs, tractors, lots of different equipment. And I think, last time we spoke, we talked a lot about sustainability, and it's a big topic in the aviation industry, and I think it's only going to grow, certainly. But also this year saw the introduction of at Inter Airport Europe, the Focus Sustainability Summit, which they say is aimed at bringing stakeholders together to talk about the net zero commitments of the global industry. Obviously, the industry is looking at being net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And I think those discussions are certainly coming more to the forefront in terms of when we look at the future of the markets and, the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and I think, all this greenwashing and seen to be green, I think, the more debate and discussion, the more clarity will come about. And obviously the more competence of people who otherwise are talking about something that they think they understand, but there's a lot of nuances and a lot of difficulties and restrictions involved in the subject matter. And you've only got to look at some of the political parties in some of the countries pulling back on certain commitments because they're not realistic, or they have a almost, I shouldn't say worse, but they have a different impact on society than what one would hope. So I think the realities and the clarity is something that's so important.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few, people, key players, as they call them, across the industry. And it's interesting you use that term, greenwashing. I normally associate that term with, I've spoken to quite a lot of climate activists, and they use that term. But interestingly, as I say, I've spoken to other people in the industry who say that, look, you've got all these GSE manufacturers saying, we're going to go green, we're going to go sustainable. They're talking the talk. They're saying all the rhetoric to, get themselves on the, I suppose, the good side. And, because everyone wants to show they're doing their bit for sustainability and show what they're doing. But in reality, what they're saying is it's the sheer cost of it is, it's not worth it. So all these companies are kind of bigging themselves up and saying, look, we're going green. But in reality, they are not. So it's quite interesting.
I think the sad reality is those that would bring a few painters in and paint all their vehicles and buildings and uniform and people green, the public would then assume that it was a green message and that they were great. And I think there isn't enough depth or substance in some of the commitments and some of the statements that they're coming out with. And I think it's only going to be for the better and for everybody's better if people start to realise, what it all means and the costs. And at the end of the day, if people aren't making profit, there isn't going to be much time or attention given to the planet. And, that's just the sad realities of life. But anyhow, right. So Focus Sustainability Summit. Great. That's a good point. And it's a good initiative. So that's brilliant. Now, also from feedback I've got is that, there were different types of products and different types of sectors represented there this time, and quite a lot of startups.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, this is my first time at Inter Airport. But I think I know in one of the halls, almost half of it was airfield and airport lighting. And the companies I spoke to, they said, I mean, the big ones, ADB Safegate and that sort of thing. I mean, they said that, there were a lot more startup companies in the lighting area of the sector than ever before. And like I said, one of the halls, I mean, half of it was all lighting. And I've done a few interviews, I've spoken to them. So that's quite interesting to know. So yeah, in terms of, I suppose, the biggest focuses, I would say definitely the EGSE and, as I say, airfield lighting as well seem to be kind of the biggest takeaways I would mention.
Yeah, and I don't know, Will, but like you said, it's new for you. But when you go to some of these conferences, you actually sit down and you listen to people who are passionate about their product or their service, and you never realised, what it was or what they're doing. I remember talking to guys, with specialist tarmac and how the tarmac was applied, on runways and rubber coming off and sustainability, all these things. It really, really does open your eyes when you listen to these people talking. And I think it's amazing. It's really good. It's also good to publicise that, because it brings different people into or in association with our industry.
Yeah, definitely, man. I can't really expand on that because I think you've kind of summed it up quite well. But one thing that is quite interesting, another point that I was going to make was that by contrast, I spoke to a few people who said they were quite disappointed in this year's show just because there wasn't so much of a focus on GSE, but more in terms of the terminal operations, that side of the sector.
Yeah, I think it's funny because we're talking about doing new things, being innovative, having startups, and also different sectors getting focus. And I suppose anything that's different makes people assume that what was there before isn't as good or isn't as important. And sometimes the perception of people is very different. But at the end of the day, terminals are important. GSE obviously is hugely important, especially with the electrification and fire suppression, and now, I mean, that terrible fire at Luton Airport in the car park. I mean, what's going to come out of that is probably worth keeping your eye on.
Yes, absolutely, and we're talking about size of the exhibition as well. I mean, for me, as someone new to the aviation side of things, I mean, I saw quite a lot of GSE. As I say, I don't have much to compare it to, but in previous years, I was speaking to attendees, exhibitors. They were saying that in previous years it was twice the size. I mean, it was, like I said, it was 2 halls this year. Other people have said it was 3-4 halls in previous years, and then outside there's a massive area, a huge showcase of different new GSE. So it's interesting to to see the fact that they feel, I suppose, that it's not been as good in previous years, or compared to previous years. Sorry.
And how did you feel? How did you feel with the participants? People moving around the halls and everything.
It's very, very busy. In comparison to, as I said, some of the other events I've been to, it seems to be one of the biggest in terms of footfall. I mean, it was quite busy. Certainly the first couple of days in my view were quite busy. The third one, I wasn't there for the last day. We were only there for the first 3 days, but on the third one it was quite slow going. And I think, as again, what people have said to me is, once you've done the rounds, once you've done, you've spoken to all the people you want to speak to in the first couple of days, there's not really much to do. So perhaps maybe in the future, 4 days is a bit excessive, but I don't think I'm the best authority to guide, the event organizers and tell them what to do.
Yeah, but you're right though. I think people are looking at the whole package now and working out where's the value for money, and obviously with budgets getting a little bit tighter and certain restrictions, it makes more sense to really pack it in, get out and enjoy it, rather than people say, oh yeah, it went on for too long, etc. But the one good thing is, having been to many now, in the last year or so, it's absolutely fantastic to be seeing people up front again. And, I'm just amazed at how many people in so many different sectors and industries, are still remote working. I don't know whether, obviously a balance is great. But, when you see people getting together and the value of that, I think it's immense.
Yeah, from a networking perspective, it's a huge event. I myself picked up quite a few business cards. And as I say, it was, from my experience, it's certainly very busy on my end, and it seemed like, overall it was a good show.
No, nice one. And what are your plans now? Where's the next one? Where are you off to next?
I'm not too sure. I've heard some rumors about Dubai and their business air show, but for now I think I'm back in the office for the next few months, which is nice.
Yeah,
it's nice to have a bit
show,
of it's nice to have a bit of a return to normality. I've been jet setting all across the world the last few weeks. It's nice to be back home.
Yeah, tough old task, eh? You got to make sure now as well you don't wear the same suit now when we have our next catch-up chat.
No, well, I've bought a new one, so you'll see that. It's a lovely new suit, and I've got another one I've got my eye on. So I'll definitely wear a new suit.
That's it. Style never leaves you. Fashion just comes in and out. Make your own mark, Will. Listen, as always, it's lovely to speak to you. Glad everything's going well. And, you've made a good impact on the team now, and you're involved, and you seem as if you're really enjoying it. And there's nothing better than enjoying what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm loving it so far. So, yeah.
All right. Take care of yourself. Absolute pleasure as always. And good luck with everything that you're doing.